Let's go Broncos! What if I told you that some of the biggest battles that could shape the Broncos' entire season are about to begin, and most fans aren't even talking about them yet? While everyone is focused on the obvious stars, there are major questions quietly developing behind the scenes that could have a massive impact on this team over the coming months. New coaches are arriving with fresh ideas, important veterans are entering critical contract years, young players are fighting for larger roles, and perhaps most importantly, several position groups are about to face their first true test together. The atmosphere around the Broncos is heating up, and this week's OTAs may provide the first real clues about who is rising, who is earning trust, and which players could become much bigger factors than anyone expects. Some roles that seemed secure a few months ago may not be as secure today. Some players that have flown under the radar may suddenly force their way into the spotlight. And there are still several unanswered questions that the coaching staff must solve before the season gets closer. But before we go any further, make sure you've already hit the like button if you truly believe the Broncos are building something special this season. Let's see how many optimistic Broncos fans are watching right now. And if you're confident this team is heading in the right direction, drop this comment below. Go Broncos! Our best football is still ahead of us. Personally, after looking at everything happening around this roster, I believe the most encouraging sign isn't any individual player, it's the amount of competition taking place across the team. Competition creates development, development creates depth, and depth is often what separates good teams from teams that can sustain success throughout an entire season. The Broncos appear to have talented players competing for meaningful opportunities at multiple positions, and that's exactly the kind of environment you want to see as OTAs begin. Now let's get into the latest developments because there are several important storylines Broncos country needs to be paying attention to right now. Now, getting straight to the biggest storyline, OTAs are not padded practices, but they are still extremely valuable because they provide the first real look at how players and coaches are working together. One of the most interesting topics heading into these sessions is the arrival of new coaches and how their influence could impact several position groups. The wide receiver room, in particular, is receiving a lot of attention. Ronald Curry is one of the names generating significant interest. He arrives with a reputation for demanding high standards, and there is a belief that his presence could help address some of the issues that affected the receiver room previously. The discussion surrounding this position group focuses heavily on consistency, reducing drops, improving fundamentals, and helping a very talented collection of players reach a higher level. Alongside Curry, Willie Snead has also joined the coaching staff in a support role working with receivers, creating another layer of development and instruction for both younger players and veterans. What makes this especially fascinating is that the Broncos appear determined to maximize the potential of this group. The conversation in the source material repeatedly highlighted the belief that the room possesses tremendous talent on paper. However, talent alone is never enough. The challenge now is turning that potential into reliable production through coaching, repetition, and competition during practices. OTAs will offer the first clues about whether that transformation is beginning to take shape. Another major storyline involves the overall structure of the offense and how new responsibilities among the coaching staff could influence operations moving forward. There's curiosity about how things may look with Davis Webb in his role and whether certain players could see their involvement evolve. Even though these practices will not reveal everything, every observation becomes important because this is the first glimpse of the team's direction. The defensive side of the ball also enters OTAs with plenty of intrigue. Much of the defensive core remains together, which creates continuity, but there are still several developments that fans will be watching closely. One of the most discussed topics is Jonah Elliss and the expectation that he will spend time working as an off-ball linebacker. The biggest question is how extensive that role will be. Will he exclusively focus on those responsibilities, or will he continue mixing in duties associated with his previous role? That remains one of the most compelling mysteries entering these practices. Beyond Jonah Elliss, attention will also be directed toward the secondary. There is excitement surrounding the combination of established contributors and younger players competing for opportunities. Observers will be watching rotations, positional alignments, and how various defensive backs are utilized throughout practices. Competition appears to be a major theme, and OTAs represent the first opportunity to see those battles begin unfolding in real time. Perhaps the most important takeaway from everything surrounding this week is that the Broncos are finally entering a stage where speculation begins giving way to observation. For months, discussions have centered on projections, expectations, and possibilities. Now the organization takes the field, and every practice rep starts adding real information to the conversation. Coaches can evaluate players, players can establish roles, and fans can finally start receiving answers to some of the offseason's biggest questions. The excitement is undeniable because this is the moment when all the offseason additions, coaching changes, player development plans, and position battles begin coming together. While nobody should overreact to a single OTA practice, these sessions often provide the first signs of what a team wants to become. What makes the situation even more interesting is that several important defensive players are entering crucial stages of their futures with the organization, and OTAs could offer the first hints about how the team views them moving forward. According to the information discussed in the source material, two names stand out immediately: Evan Engram and Marvin Mims. Both remain important pieces of the offense, yet both are entering the final year of their current deals, creating plenty of discussion about what comes next. Starting with Evan Engram, there is a growing belief that his role deserves more clarity and potentially a larger emphasis within the offense. The discussion surrounding him centers on the idea that his talent can create matchup problems all over the field. His versatility remains one of his greatest strengths because he is not simply a traditional tight end. He can line up in multiple spots, move around the formation, and provide flexibility that can stress opposing defenses. That type of player can become extremely valuable when an offense is searching for ways to create favorable opportunities. One of the points raised in the source material is that there appears to be room for more creative ways to utilize Engram. There is interest in seeing him receive opportunities where he can build momentum before receiving the football rather than consistently operating in situations that limit his ability to generate yards after the catch. The feeling is that his athletic skill set can be maximized when he is allowed to attack space rather than simply serving as a stationary target. OTAs will be one of the first opportunities to observe whether any of those ideas are beginning to emerge in practice. At the same time, the Broncos added Justin Joly, who is viewed as a player capable of operating in a similar role. That naturally creates another layer of intrigue. It does not mean Ingram's position is immediately threatened, but it does mean there will be competition and long-term questions surrounding how the team structures that part of the offense in the future. The coming months could be extremely important in determining how those pieces fit together. Then there is Marvin Mims, whose situation is equally fascinating. The source material emphasized how valuable he has been in key moments and highlighted the belief that he is far more than simply a specialty player. There is a strong argument that his contributions deserve continued opportunities despite the increasing depth at wide receiver. The challenge, of course, is that the Broncos have added talent to the position group, creating a highly competitive environment where snaps and targets must be earned. What stands out most from the discussion is the idea that depth should be viewed as a strength rather than a problem. The Broncos appear to have assembled a receiver room where multiple players can contribute, and that creates healthy competition. Injuries happen throughout an NFL season, and teams with quality depth often find themselves in a much stronger position when adversity arrives. Rather than viewing crowded position groups as obstacles, the conversation framed them as advantages that could help sustain success over the course of a long season. Another fascinating detail involves how the coaching staff evaluates players during this period. The source material noted that opportunities are often distributed across different units because coaches want as many evaluations as possible. That means players are not necessarily locked into rigid roles during these practices. Repetitions become valuable, experimentation becomes possible, and coaches gain information that can shape decisions later in the year. OTAs may only represent the beginning of the process, but they often reveal which players are earning attention behind the scenes. Defensively, the competition could be just as intense. The secondary